Om Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om everyone, nice to see everyone again. Once again, my apologies for last Saturday, but the timings for an in-person class were exactly the same as this study group session. So as is the norm, I had to ask the Acharya if I can miss, and he was categorical. He said, no, you can't. And I think all of you know him. Babubai knows him perhaps better than all of us. But Swami Sarupananda, to put a modern English phrase to it, doesn't take prisoners. So he said no, and that hence my message on last week on Thursday. So I hope you've had a chance to think about the reflection exercise and see those two very, very nicely presented clips. I hope the links that were sent, you've seen them. So if someone has their phone handy, Jayshree, if you have your phone handy, can you read the thing that was sent not 2 days back, but 9 days back about this question of Chit, Chaitanya, etc. Do you have it, Jayshree? So please unmute and then just read out what was sent. And then, as I said, I hope you've had a chance to see those two clips, but if you haven't, you can still see them. They're very, very well explained.
Please use the time to read and reflect on the concept of Chetana, consciousness referred to in verse 10.22 of the Bhagavad Gita, which we studied recently in module 30 of LEEP. Relate this to the similar sounding Vedanta concept of Chitta, and Chaitanya. The following links provides valuable insight from Swami Tadatmananda of Arshabodha and Swami Sarvapriyananda of Ramakrishna Math. Both are very good teachers, so do try and watch them during the course of the coming week.
Okay. So
And we can discuss at the beginning.
who had a chance to watch the clips? Anyone? Okay. Many of you have not, but I strongly recommend that you listen to these two teachers. They're both very good. Swami Sarvapriyananda is, of course, very well known. He's the Acharya of Vedanta Society, New York, and a disciple of the school of Swami Vivekananda and Maharishi Ramakrishna. So please do watch them. Now, Jayshree, since you have so nicely read out these thoughts to us, what is your thought about, and since you did manage to watch those two clips, um, let's look at verse 22 first, folks, which was, let's jog our memory and see what it's about. Because that term came up there, and of course, it always brings up a question in our minds. So this is the verse.
Vedanam samavedosmi Devanamasmi vasavaha Indriyanam manaschasmi Bhutanamasmi chetana.
Okay, Jayshree, if you could also read us the translation, since you've started us off on this verse.
Sorry, I need you to lift little page.
You need me to?
You can raise the page little up.
Oh, okay.
I'm not able to read.
Yes. How
Yeah.
is that better?
Yeah. Of
Okay.
the Vedas, I am the Samved. Of the gods, I am the Vasava. Of the senses, I am the mind. And of the living beings, I am the consciousness.
Okay. Now, folks, pay attention to the second line. Indriyanam manaschasmi. Of senses, I am the mind. The mind is considered, strangely enough, in Vedanta perspectives, as the principle of the senses, the headquarters, the place where all that information from our five senses has to pass through before it is interpreted and responded to. Okay, so Indriyanam manascha asmi. Now, this is the interesting one, the second half of the second line. Bhutanam asmi chetana. Of living beings, I am consciousness. And the word used here, if you see, is chetana. So here's the question that was posed. What is this chetana that this verse that we had studied the week before refers to? Any thoughts, anyone? Hari Om Niyatiji, Hari Om Judy, good to see all of you. Okay, what is chetana?
Same here,
It is,
Paresh ji.
Yes, Ratnabai, go ahead.
I think the word Chaitanya here, which sometimes referred to as Chaitanya also, is actually normally described to use pure consciousness or the universal self. And that is the basis or essence of awareness.
Awareness, yes. But this is the misunderstanding many of us have had, and the reason, Ratnabai, for posing this question. Chaitanya means what you just said, universal consciousness, the everything. So a few weeks back, if you remember, we had discussed the interesting question and idea of, does an insentient object have consciousness? You remember that question? So a table, a chair, a bottle, a stone, do those insentient objects have consciousness? And if you recall, we had concluded by consensus after discussion that yes, they do. Because simply by virtue of being, I can hold his phone. I can say it is, even without giving it a name or a form, I can say it is. It exists. That means it is an expression of Chaitanya. That universal consciousness from which everything comes. Every object, being, or even circumstance. Okay, is everyone clear so far about what is Chaitanya? Let's leave the word in the verse aside for just a brief moment. Chaitanya is the Vedanta term used for universal consciousness, as Ratnabai just told us. Now, this is the same as Chit, the short Chit, C-I-T, written in transliteration as C-I-T. If you recall, when Jayashree read the reflection message, she said, what is the difference between Chit and Chitta? Now, this Chit, which is the same as Chaitanya, is the Chit of Sat Chit Ananda. So we say that universal consciousness is Sat Chit Ananda, truth, existence. And we commonly translate Ananda as bliss, but in this context of that nature of that reality, that truth, Sat Chit Ananda, the better translation, which is in one of those two clips, I won't tell you which one, I would really like all of you to watch those two clips, is completeness. So, knowledge, existence, completeness. Sat Chit Ananda. So the Chit of Sat Chit Ananda, which is a phrase we are all very familiar with, because it is a description of the truth, of reality, of Brahman, is that Chit of Sat Chit Ananda is the same as Chaitanya, universal consciousness. Okay? Now the verse says Chetana. Let me read again that line, the second part of the second line. And of living beings, I am consciousness. Of living beings. So the question now arises, what is the difference between me as a living being, an expression of Chaitanya, conscious, supreme, universal consciousness, and this phone that I just showed you? What is the difference? This is also an expression of that universal consciousness, Chaitanya. So is the pebble in the garden or the blade of grass. What is the difference? Any thoughts, anyone?
Chetana is the life force. No.
Yes, Chetana can only be there, Chetana, as articulated in this verse, in a living being. It is the enlivening life force of any living being, be it a tree, a plant, a bacteria, an animal, a mammal, or a human being. So, what distinguishes these beings, as described in this verse, of beings I am consciousness? What distinguishes all these beings? You note that he says in the verse, in his teaching, not humans, not people. He says of beings, right? The word used is the general word, Bhutanamasmi, Chetana. What is the difference then? We are working step by step, folks. Stay with me. Between beings who have Chetana as an expression of Chaitanya and non beings, the insentient, a phone, a bottle, a stone. What is the difference? Any thoughts? Okay, I'm going to give you a clue. Niyatiji, you need to help me here. As beings, we have BMI. This is a clue, by the way, body, mind, and intellect. We know this, right? If I pick up a rock on the side of a mountain, does it have a body, mind, and intellect?
No.
Okay, let's break this down. Does it have a body?
No.
It does.
Body.
It is. It's a physical object. It has a body. A rock has a body. But here's the crunch. Here's the crux of the matter. Does that
Mind and
rock have a mind or an intellect?
No.
What distinguishes, therefore,
Mind and
Bhutanamasmi, beings, the ability to act, whether it is a small cat in the garden or a mouse in the church or you or me, we can perform some action, but there is a difference in the degree of how much choice we have. The animal will act according to its pure instinctive vasanas. We have the choice because we also have an intellect. So the difference between the insentient, the stone, the bottle, the phone, and you and me is the presence of the mind. I'm using mind in the broad term here to mean actually to encompass mind and intellect. Only those beings with a mind can have Chetana, what Ratnabai so nicely described as the life empowering, emotion and thought empowering force. And so I had an interesting discussion with my Gita Acharya on this just 3 days back. I said, this Chaitanya and Chetna. He said, come, sit down. He said, there's electricity. I said, yeah. He said, does electricity have any, it has a name, but does it have any form? No. But how do we know there is electricity? He says, you have a bulb. You plug it into electricity, it lights up. And the bulb lights up in a different way. It could be yellow, green, blue, bright, dim, whatever. He says that bulb is you, the body. The bulb cannot light up. He says, what is the difference between a working bulb and a broken bulb? And then I started getting it. It's that tungsten filament, right? He says the tungsten filament is you, the mind. We are sentient. We possess sentience because of our mind. This is empowered by and lit up by, so to speak, by Chetana, which is a special form in living beings of Chaitanya, which is the universal consciousness. Is everyone getting this? So we are all expressions of Chaitanya, but as human beings, we are also expressions of Chetana, which this verse mentions. What started this thought process was, I said, why is he saying Chetana here? Because he's referring to living beings. Living beings have Chetana. Everything is an expression of Chaitanya, and they sound similar, but we have to be careful with terms, terminology, and words. Every single thing that we see, experience, feel, touch is an expression of Chaitanya, universal consciousness. Chetana is only there in living beings to varying levels. And our gift as humans is to have the highest level of Chetana, the highest level of sentience, because we have a mind and an intellect, which is the analogy, in the analogy, the tungsten filament of the bulb. Okay? Everyone clear? So we have understood.
Perry, can I ask just
Yes,
one question?
of
Is
course.
that this? Is that the same as conscience? So you say somebody is conscious, yeah? So maybe they're in ICU or something. Somebody's conscious and consciousness. So consciousness is universal. Conscious is there a relationship?
That ICU question often comes up, Alpa. It's a good one because I asked the same question. I said, I'm a doctor, so I've seen patients who are alive, but the answer to that is quite simple. That patient is still conscious. We say that, right? This is a conscious and alive patient, but not responsive. We say that in medicine, unresponsive. So in that case, the mind is present, but it has switched off. That's the simple answer to your question. The mind is present. This is a living body, a living person, but it is switched off either by medical means or due to the pathology in question. It could be a stroke or a brain tumor or whatever it is. The mind is present but switched off. But a person who is still alive, even on life support, cannot be said not to have consciousness, that broad universal consciousness. Even when he or she dies, they are still expressions of Chaitanya. They are still this matter. But now Chetana is absent. Chetana has gone. So that Chetana, in other words, Alpa and everyone else, is an expression of Sukshma Sharira, the subtle body, the mind intellect that we spoke of in the last few minutes. When Sukshma Sharira, mind intellect, is present and functioning, it is present and functioning due to Chetana, sentience. That mind intellect is not present in a rock that you find on the side of a mountain. The rock still has a body. Okay, so living beings, non-living things. Living beings have sentience, Chetana. All of them are expressions of the greater, broader concept of Chaitanya, which is universal consciousness. Okay, Vasant, you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Yes, Perry. So, what is unconsciousness?
In a human being?
Yeah.
Yeah, as I said to Alpa, if somebody is lying unconscious in an ICU, in her example, they are still expressions of the universal consciousness because they are a living being, right? That person who is in ICU on life support is still alive, correct? They are a living being, they are an expression of Chaitanya consciousness, but that mind, which gives that living being sentience in normal circumstances. Sentience meaning it can feel and think and express is absent. So in the comatose patient in the ICU, the mind is not present. It is there, but it is not present as a functioning entity. And so in medical terms, as Alpa will confirm to you, and if Shashibai was here, he would have confirmed to you, that is called in medical terms simply, this patient is comatose or unconscious. Does that answer your question, Vasan?
So same as unresponsive?
Or unresponsive, yeah. Because to respond, you need a functioning mind, right?
Okay.
So if there's no functioning mind there, what we can say in the ICU, either as Alpa would as a surgeon or any of us would as a Vedantin, consciousness is present all the time and everywhere, Chaitanya. In this particular person, Chetana is not currently present because mind is not currently present. That mind in the person who has been put into, say, a physician-induced comatose state. Sometimes with severe brain injuries, the neurosurgeon will deliberately put a patient under a comatose state for anything from 5 to 15 days to allow that brain to recover from the trauma it has sustained. Now, that person does not have Chetana because the mind has been switched off, either by the injury, the pathology, or by drugs given by a neurosurgeon, for example. So there is no mind there. And what we hope as the group of relatives standing outside the ICU is when we say, I hope, I pray he recovers. What you are saying effectively, I hope, I pray that his or her mind recovers from this absence of mind to, again, re-emergence of the mind. And that is why there is so much delight and joy, both on the part of the critical care physician and the family, when the fellow opens his eye and smiles. That means the mind is back now. Okay, does that help answer your question, Vasan?
Yeah,
Okay,
thanks.
so Chaitanya, Chetana, straightforward concept. Also straightforward, Chaitanya is the one and the same thing as Chit. Sanskrit has many words for many things. When you say Sat Chit Ananda, you mean Sat Chaitanya Ananda, but it sounds better with Chit. But Chit and Chaitanya are the same thing, universal consciousness. And so the last part of this reflection exercise was, in that case, what is Chitta? Citta. Not Chit, CIT, but Chitta, Citta. Any thoughts, anyone? Niyati, you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
You were talking about the comatose patient. Though I would say his functioning mind is absent, means he's not able to, what you call, perceive the world. But his subconscious mind still keeps functioning, right?
It does. And there is evidence for that.
Yeah. So only he is not able to perceive. So can we say that his sense organs are temporarily not functioning? That is why his mind is not functioning, because he's unaware of the world outside at that moment.
Niyatiji, usually it's the other way around. Because his mind has stopped functioning,
his indriyas are not.
His indriyas are not responsive. So what we do as doctors in ICU patients who've been comatose for a day or a month is we do several tests every morning on the ward round. We do a pinprick and we lift the eyelid and check with a bright torch, the pupillary reflex and all those things.
Okay.
To see if any one of the 5 indriyas are slowly coming back to being functioning the way they should.
Okay.
But the central junction of all this is the mind.
Mind.
Even in us, when we are alive,
Yes.
kicking and well, if something touches you, you know something has touched you, the sense of touch, because your mind has received this sensory impulse.
Stimulus.
And your mind has sent that message to a specific part of your brain. saying
Yes.
you are being touched, and you look and it could be a snake. So you will then have a reflex reaction and brush it off, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
but the
it's the
subconscious
other way.
still remains. Yeah, the
Yes,
subconscious
yes.
keeps working.
Now, this is a great mystery of both medicine and Vedanta, this subconscious. Now, yoga systems explore this in a very great deal of depth and detail. According to Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, there are 16 facets to your memory and mind. I'm not going to go into the details. It's very deep and subtle. But that subconscious is one of those, Netaji. That, for example, one of the facets of memory is, let's take your example, Netaji. You have the eyes and nose of an ancestor, God knows how long ago, right? That is a form of memory. Genetic memory, we call it in biology and medicine, right? But you have your ancestors' nose and eyes. How did that happen? It's not a fluke. And yes, Alpa and Sashiba and I would say, yes, but it's genes. But where did the genes get their messaging from? And Alpa and Sashiba and I would say, well, the four proteins. Yes, but where did they come from? And we could carry on this discussion up to that point where we say, well, there is this thing called Chetana, sentience. Okay? But we won't go there. So, Niyatiji, Vasant, I hope your questions have been clarified a little bit. Any other questions, anyone, on Chit and Chaitanya and
Sorry,
Chetana,
Omperi.
which we have discussed? Yes, Dakshaben, go ahead.
I actually listened to Swami Tidatmananda and found it very, very scientific. But
Yes,
now that you are explaining, it's making sense now.
go and listen to it again.
I will. And the same happened with even Sarva Priyananda.
Yes,
He
these
is
are
extremely scientific.
these are very high intellects, Dakshaben. I send those
Couldn't understand
I
anything
send
there.
those
So I
clips
just switched off.
deliberately, not out of some chance or accident. I selected carefully and send them deliberately because we are now well into the second half of studying this Bhagavad Gita. And so it's time to listen to these very refined intellects. We listen to we
Yeah.
listen to perhaps the most refined intellect every week through Swami Chinmayananda. But because his intellect was so refined, he had a way of putting things which appear simple to us. Now, do you see the difference, Dakshaben? Swami
Very.
Sarvapriyananda is explaining the same principles as Swami Chinmayananda, but the senior guru has a way of putting it in simple, accessible language. Swami Sarvapriyananda, you must listen to at least twice, if not three times. Make a
Okay.
note or two, ask a question, and then you'll get it. I'm not criticizing Swami Sarvapriyananda. I have the highest regard and respect for him. He's a wonderful Vedanta teacher. But the art of Swami Chinmayananda, the art of Swami Vivekananda in expressing these principles in the simplest terms is at a different level. So make no mistake, although we are looking at archive material, every week we see 2 or 3 verses, you are listening to very crystallized and distilled wisdom of one of the great teachers, right? I think everyone will agree. Yes, Babu Bhai? We are fortunate. We have these archives. In the old days, you had to go and sit in the ashram for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years at the feet of the teacher and keep listening and learning. Now we have all this archive material available to us on our screens. Okay? So, Chit, Chaitanya, same thing. Chaitanya is in living beings. It is as Ratnabai said so nicely, the life enlivening force that makes us conscious of ourselves, our senses, our thoughts, and everything. The question I asked then is that fourth similar sounding word. What is chitta? Any thoughts, anyone? Somebody has said intellect. Not quite, Chola. Okay,
I think
I'm going to give
Is it
everyone
the
another clue.
memory?
I'm
Is
going to
it the
give you a clue
memory?
again. We say our mental landscape is made of 4 components. We've discussed this before, right?
This was an answer to the
Oh,
older question, Doc.
Oh,
It's
the older
not.
one. I'm sorry, Chola. That is absolutely the right answer to the older question.
Is
I,
it
I
thoughts?
So,
This is-
we say our mental landscape has four components, four spheres, aspects to it, four perspectives. Manas, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankar.
the ahankar.
You remember this, right, folks? We've talked about it a few times from different angles. Manas, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankar.
Ahankar.
Manas is what?
Mind.
Mind. Buddhi?
Chitta.
No, Buddhi. Buddhi.
Memory.
Intellect.
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 Manas, mind. Buddhi, intellect. Chitta
Ego.
is the
Is
question.
memory.
Ahankar, Ahankar. Yes, memory. Ahankar is ego.
Yeah.
Ego.
So Chitta is memory. And this is, Niyatiji, this is the memory in its broadest scope that we spoke about 3 or 4 minutes back. This memory has over a dozen components to it, according to Yoga Sutra studies. Why your eyes and nose look the way they do, why your voice sounds the way it does, why you even think the way you do. It is all based on memory. You have childhood memories that have dictated how you think and feel and speak. Right? We agree. Modern psychology and psychiatry tells us this. So, Manas, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankar. This Chitta, Citta, is in its simplest form. There are many meanings, like all Sanskrit words, is our memory component, which has many facets to it. We will not go into that. Okay? So, Dinesh, I hope this is reasonably clear. You look puzzled, perturbed. Are you okay?
Can I ask you something on
Please,
this?
of course, of course.
Yeah. So we've been talking about the human beings in this particular case, between the consciousness, and even chitta now. But when we go to the animal kingdom or to the plant kingdom, they do have memory, as we
Yes,
said,
yes.
genetic.
I have to agree entirely with you. Dinesh, the verse says, Bhutanam asmi chetana, of living beings I'm consciousness. It does not say humans.
Yeah.
All living beings. Even plants have memories. Even plants have some of the functions that our own minds have. What we
Right.
need to understand is that there is an evolution amongst living things of that mind and intellect. Plants have a very basic mind, so to speak.
Mind.
Lower animals have a slightly more refined mind. If you go near a scorpion or a crab, it will run away
Mm.
because it has that mind to understand that this is a threat, and so on.
Right.
Then reptiles, mammals, and primates.
Get it.
Okay?
Yeah.
In us, that mind intellect is the highest developed of all these living beings, which is why we can even be having this discussion on what is this Chit, Chaitanya, and Chetana, right?
Mhm.
Even our closest relative, an orangutan or a chimp or one of the great apes, would not be able to, at least verbally, have this conversation. We don't know if they can have it non-verbally. We don't know enough about them. They are extremely smart. Speaking of which, small aside, has anyone heard of a book called Ishmael? It's by a Canadian philosopher and anthropologist. Has anyone heard of this book?
I heard it from you.
Oh, I see. Okay, I'm going to put this up on the group now tomorrow with the recording link. This is a book about a conversation between a gorilla and the writer of the book. And nothing is spoken. It is all, as you said, Niyatiji, just a few minutes back, at the subconscious plane. And they have the deepest conversation about sensible primates, in this case being the gorilla, and foolish primates, in this case being Homo sapiens, us. This is a wonderful book for anyone who loves philosophy, animals, and just loves to stop and think for a moment. It was a bestseller and won many awards many years ago. I think it was a Canadian writer. I'll find it and put it on the group. And if I can find a PDF version, I'll also put that on the group. This is well worth reading. It's called Ishmael. The gorilla's name is Ishmael. and it's a book worth reading. All right. So enough about sentiency and consciousness and all that, memory. Any questions? Anyone? Santa, you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Okay, I'm just thinking aloud.
Yes.
When we are paying for our karma or that, would our subconscious be aware what we are paying for?
Would the subconscious be aware of
Past karmas.
karmic reactions?
Or even present? Yeah, absolutely.
Is the subconscious aware of karmic reactions?
Yeah.
Now, let's broaden that question, Santa, to is any aspect of our consciousness, subconscious, memory, ego, any of it, really truly aware of karma? Right now, as we are speaking, do we remember any past life, any past
No.
karma, or
So
any
there is,
resultant of that karma?
no.
We don't. So I think the simple answer to your question is no, the subconscious doesn't know anything about karma. But Bhartiben has said in the last 2 weeks that you can do a past life regression.
Regression.
And if you do a past life regression, there is some thinking that says you can remember. Now, that aspect is the one we have just discussed, chitta, memory. Your memory has so many facets, and one of those is what you are describing as the subconscious memory. So yes, it is possible. I don't know because I don't know enough about it. But past life regression and past life regression theories seem to claim that they can awaken within the many facets, the 16 facets of your memory, those latent memories of your subconscious memory, not your subconscious mind. Remember, the mental landscape has manas, buddhi, chitta, ahankara. So that chitta has a subconscious memory, and it is possible that it may have memories of past life, which experts are able to tap and make real to you as the subject. But honest answer, I don't know enough about it. And may I ask Parthiben, because she brought it up 2 weeks back, Parthiben, is there some truth to past life regression?
Yes. It is very easy to do, but depends on what you want from it. So as a Reiki master, I was trained to do past life regression, but very, very generally. So I couldn't go very deeply into it. But a couple of lifetimes or even your earlier childhood can be got to, and whatever problems you had at that time can be healed with Reiki. So that is where I went to. But I have heard other Vedantins who are very deep into meditations and things have said that as you get more and more into it, your memory, the chitta part really enlarges, and you can see other people's past lives as well as your own. And I had a family friend who used to visit my mom, and she would look at all of us and tell us what some of our past lives were. And they were so true to what we were in at that time that it used to baffle me. And
So
it sometimes her words come back to me when somebody talks about something in the family, and I know that it's coming from that life. So I have a little smile.
Bhartiben, thank you for that insight. One of the things that a living yoga master has told us not in the public forum, in the teaching forum. This is Sadhguru
Yeah, even I heard from him as well.
He said, yes. And because I've taken my sadhana to a certain level, I can remember not one, but more than one past life. And I don't pay it any attention because my karma is in this span of time.
What is
Remember,
to
we
come.
saw that movie about how narrow that span of time is. Those guys who
Mm.
put the lights in the desert.
Yeah.
He says, I don't want to spend time and energy on a past life. I understand that there was one or two or more. I can even experience them and access that chitta of subconscious memory. But I'm not interested. And then he said the most important and practical thing. He said, neither should you be interested. He says, you cannot cope with your own life and memories. Now you want to start digging into memories of somebody else. He says, effectively, this is somebody else. It's not you.
Yeah.
He says, why do you want to interfere with your own past life when you can barely cope with your present life? Please deal with this present one and do it properly. Keep yourself well, handle yourself well, do sadhana so that in this very thin sliver of time, you yourself in this life become that enlightened thinking, enlightened acting person. So, Bhartiben, thank you. Santa, thank you for the question. But
They say
personally,
you don't
I
need to
don't,
open the old skeletons, which are
no.
already in a grave.
And we know from very elegant studies that young children can remember, and they will tell their parents and take them to places and show them. But there is a reason that after the age of about 2.5, maybe 3, those memories fade away because they are replaced by fresh memories of the current life. There's a very good reason for this. And jokes aside, and Sadhguru imparts great wisdom through jokes, and so does, as you now know well, Swami Chinmayananda. And Swami Chinmayananda himself said, he says, why do you want to bother with that? Look at you now. You're a complete train wreck, and you want to worry about some other train wrecks? Forget it. This life, this thin fragment of time that is your gift, do this life well. So, Santa, I hope that answers your question. Parthiben, I hope that concurs with your previous teaching and training.
Yes, it does. It was just that when I was healing people, I found that a lot of elderly women, especially, had problems with their ankles. A lot of pain in the ankle.
Yeah.
And they had come to me for healing of that pain. So we used to go down to their childhood times, and invariably each was linked with separation from the parents.
There you go.
So that ankle is supposed to have joy, and their joy was cut out from their lives.
And this brings to mind something that something important that Dakshaben said a few minutes back. That she thought it was very scientific in her own words.
Yes.
The teachings from Swami
Sarvapriyananda. Yeah.
Swami Tadatmananda and Swami Sarvapriyananda. Dakshaben and everyone else, never forget this simple fact of what we are studying. Vedanta is not a belief system. Indeed, it is a philosophical treatise.
And scientific.
At its foundation, Vedanta is a science. Like any other science, it is based on logic, observation, and inference. It is based on the central premise that only you and you can come to those logical conclusions through your own mananam and through your own sadhana.
Yes.
Somebody else can't do it for you.
And also, we have to realize that those swamis are surrounded by university students. They're all doing their masters or PhDs in that subject. So they have to be relevant to them as well.
And very much on this consistent track of it must be rational and logical.
Yes.
So Dakshaben, make no mistake. Vedanta is not a religion. It is not based
the lecture at Michigan University.
Yes, it is not based on blind faith or belief systems. It is a science. But
who is at Michigan University?
Sarvapriyan's.
No, he's at NYU.
He was at Nimhans.
He was giving a guest lecture.
Yes,
it was a guest lecture at Michigan, but he's based
he was at Michigan University.
He's based in
in
New
New
York.
York at the Vedanta Society of New York, which was established by Swami Vivekananda himself on his visit to the Parliament of Religions in Chicago.
1896, yeah.
On his way back, he stopped in New York and established the Vedanta Society of New York, and it is still running in its, I think, 5th generation. And Swami Saurabhayananda is the 5th Acharya.
Swami in charge.
No, I have listened to him earlier also, but it was only this particular lecture on consciousness. I found it too scientific. I couldn't understand.
Do you remember in this
But,
lecture, he called it the hard question of consciousness? Do you remember that?
Yes, yes, yes.
He meant
Also,
it.
when they are at
It is the
university,
hard question. What is this in living beings, Chaitanya, an expression of Chaitanya? What is it? If we look deeply from a Vedanta perspective, Dakshaben and everyone else, this consciousness that we know, we experience every single microsecond of our waking and sleeping lives, is the very expression of that supreme truth. Because the final name for Chaitanya, if you look at these teachings, is Atman. Not individual Atman, not Jivatman. Atman, the supreme consciousness. The universal consciousness can only come from the supreme consciousness. So, somebody asked Swami Swarupananda, not last week, but previously. And I've shared this anecdote with you, I think, but it's worth repeating. He said, so Swamiji, how can we tell if there really is a God? Brahman, Vedanta says Brahman, Atman, self, supreme reality, absolute truth. He smiled and just looked at this person and said, are you aware of this doubt that you hold? And it was a young lady. She said, yes. He paused for a moment and then just said, case closed. I think Priti Rana will remember this one. Were you there, Priti, during that side discussion in Uttarkashi? This young brahmacharini asked, Swamiji, I'm always asked this question. How can we be sure of this Brahman, God, Ishwar, whatever? There's this doubt. And he just said, are you aware yourself in this intellect of this doubt? And she said, yes, that's why I'm asking. And he simply said, case closed. That awareness is the very expression of Chaitanya in you. A comatose person in ICU or a dead person in the morgue will not ask that question, will they? Only a living person who has got consciousness and as a result some awareness, intellectual and emotional awareness, will ask that question. That I'm not sure, I don't know. He simply said, are you aware of your doubt? And this young brahmacharini had to say, yes, I am aware. That's why I'm asking. He said, case closed. You are that Tattvamasi. You see, this is very subtle, Dakshaben and everyone else. This question of awareness, consciousness, and who we really are is very subtle, and it is the core of this pursuit that we are all embarked upon of learning who am I and what am I doing here. But he simply asked, are you aware of your doubt? And there is only one answer to that question, right? Because if that young lady had said no, then he says, then you are in a coma. You can't be asking this question. So let me leave it there. Okay. All right. Any other question? Yes, Niyatiji, you have your hand up. Go ahead, please.
Since we spoke about past life regression, I just wanted to share my experience. There was a time when I was interested into this. So I was hunting for people who would, help me with this. But then since we are on this path, one of my fellow satsangis told me that we are here to live in the now. And we have been blessed with the ability to forget. It's a blessing which we don't realize.
It is a huge blessing.
Yes. So she said, why do you want to, since you are already into studying the Bhagavad Gita, you're on the path of this Vedanta, why do you want to go back? It is not going to help you in any way. But the question of healing comes, yes, it must be helpful in healing people, but we as students of Vedanta, we have to live in the now.
Absolutely.
Live the present moment, which we fail to do even otherwise. Then why do we go back into our past lives? So there ended my search on this. I didn't go ahead.
This is the thing that, Niyatiji, thank you for those comments. This is the thing that both Vedanta and the classical schools of Patanjali Yoga tell us. Through whether you look at Vedanta through Brahma Sutras or Bhagavad Gita, or you look at yoga through Yoga Sutras, it says only this: there is no mileage in spending time, energy, and effort in memories or imaginations. Right? We have memories of the past and we can't in this life get over them. We know this, right? That, oh, you know, in 1968, that fellow said like this to me. And there he is, he's still here. The fellow has forgotten. You haven't. You're carrying this burden. And, you know, end of next year, they're saying this is going to happen to the stock exchange. We are constantly drifting from, as you said, Netaji, from this moment to memories and imaginations, and they expend a lot of energy, which we can utilize now to do karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, kriya yoga, your choice. But do it now. Right, Jayashree? Crash course. Right?
Yes. Yes.
This moment is the only moment.
Moment. Inevitable.
It is inevitable and therefore it is perfect. If your mind is trying to tell you that it's not perfect, you don't understand time then. This moment
Maybe I'd like to
is the only
explain
moment.
here
It is inevitable, therefore it is perfect. This is a very deep thought from Patanjali. Because we cannot do one microscopic thing to change this moment except our own action. And whatever it is in our memory and past that has brought us to this moment, it is truly the only moment. Yeah, Jayashree, go ahead. You wanted to add something?
Yeah, another thing about the memory is stored in our muscles. So we carry the subtle and the memories in the body and the mind also. So it is like a vase meaning the film which is stored in our body. So why you want to remove the garbage from yourself and just dig into it more and more? So you're going
No
more
point.
and more down
What
instead
we
of
need
going
to
it up.
understand, what you're saying, Jayashree, is the same thing, but in another slightly different way. What we need to understand is the only meaningful, fruitful mileage we can get out of our karma.
Yes.
And remember, this is a reminder to everyone. Karma means thought, emotion, speech, and physical action.
Action.
The only useful, meaningful mileage we can get out of our karma is in this moment. Having fully understood that this moment has arrived in front of me because of so many past moments, including past lives, this destiny I face because it has come at this moment in front of me due to the history of everything that I have done thus far. This destiny is in front of me, but how I meet it in this moment is my choice and free will.
Alpa has a question here, Perry.
Yeah, go ahead, Alpa. On the text, yeah, let me read it.
Yeah, on the chat.
So is Jitu. So Alpa, before we discuss your question as a group, Jitu has asked, why does our memory deceive us that we realize that we have been bitten by an insect only after the bite and not when the bite is being made? Jitu, when the bite is being made, you are not aware sensorily, speaking in a sensory sense of the bite. Even if it takes half a second after the bite for you to feel the pain or the itching, there is a lapse of time. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
So the memory is not deceiving us. Do you understand what I'm saying? There is no deceit here. There is a half a second gap, 1 second gap between the bite by the mosquito and you feeling the pain or the itching. That gap
Yeah.
is when your mind has received that information from your skin and processed it. So you are asking that we realize we've been bitten only after. It can only be after, right? Now, you can use another sense, two senses of yours. Let's take the example of a mosquito, right? In your example.
Yeah.
There are two other senses you can call into play. You can call sight and hearing.
Sound.
You may see the mosquito, you may hear it. And if you do, you'll take the spray and spray it or put repellent or something.
DDT.
But there has to be a gap between event and response, even if it is half a second. So memory is not deceiving us. Now, memory comes into this when tonight you have seen and heard a mosquito and been bitten and felt the itch and the pain. Now, tomorrow at the same exact time of the evening, you see and hear the mosquito. What should you do? Using your memory, your chitta. You should put on some repellent, right?
Repellent, yeah. Insect repellent, yeah.
If you don't,
yeah.
Now we are not acting in an intelligent way. That's all.
Yeah.
There's no mystery to this. There is always a time lag between event and response. Okay, does that answer your question?
Yes, I think the question arose because I mean, our mind is conscious that we only realize that we have been bitten after the event. So is our mind unconscious at the time we are being bitten?
No, the bite is so subtle that at the moment of receiving the bite, suppose it was a dog rather than a mosquito.
You could see it.
You will be aware instantly, right?
Yeah,
when those big canines go into your skin, you'll be aware in that instant and you'll do everything to even prevent it. But if it is already underway, you'll do something to take the dog away. But the mosquito is so subtle that there is a time lag. Your skin is not sensitive enough to know that a mosquito has landed on it and is about to bite. So it is just a matter of degree.
Okay.
Not of quality. A mosquito bite is the same as a dog bite.
Also, there is another reason. A lot of the insects carry an aesthetic on the bite, on the part that bites. So what it does is you don't feel the initial piercing of your skin. Only after it's gone in that you get the itch or whatever. So there are other clever methods that the insects are using.
You make a good point, Bhartiben. If you look under a microscope at a mosquito proboscis, you know, the bit that they put into you, it looks just like a hypodermic needle.
It does.
And the first thing it does, just like any good surgeon, Alpa, like any good surgeon, it puts a bit of local anesthetic. Then it carries out its act. Ask Alpa if she is able to remove even the smallest lesion on anyone without a bit of local anesthetic. Is it possible, Alpa?
It's possible, but I don't think it's something somebody wants. Yeah.
No, unless you are so elevated and evolved in your realizations. Sri Ramana Maharshi had a sarcoma removed and he said, no need for local.
I've done it on my dad.
Yeah,
he had to have some stitches. Yeah.
He said, what are you people all fussing about? I'm not this body. Do what you have to. But the oncology surgeon still insisted on putting at least the story Alpa is he put an axillary block to remove a sarcoma from his upper arm. But he said, don't worry, just do it.
Well, my dad needed some stitches and I didn't have any local at home.
So
So
you
I
did
just said
them.
to him, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. And both him and my sister were screaming while I was putting these 2 stitches in.
Anyway, Jitu, I hope that answers your query.
It does. Thank you.
For
Thanks.
for
AP,
25 years of my
to
life,
everyone, yeah, there are now doubts on whether muscle memory exists. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Very, can I answer that question in
Yes,
terms
yes, go
of
ahead. Go ahead.
Dalpa said? You know,
Yes.
there was a case in US, they did a liver transplant to another person. So the previous one who original was, he was a Korean, and to whom they had transplant was an Indian. So the Indian started having the temptations of eating the Korean food. Earlier, he was not at all, he was pure vegetarian. There are
Okay,
so
so
many cases, like medical cases.
yeah, we've
Yeah,
read
they
about
have
them,
done it.
but I think let's put it down to the mysteries of chitta, this memory, which is not just something that you remember that happened, but memory has all these facets, and we will not go into that now because this is not
it's in every cell of your body.
every cell. In fact, it's been shown even to be existing at atomic and subatomic level. Okay, so folks, I hope this discussion has helped you understand Chaitanya and Chetana, Chit and Chitta. To summarize, to recap, Chit and Chaitanya is interchangeable terms. Chetana is in sentient beings, living beings, and Chitta is memory, one of the 4 facets of our mind intellect landscape. Manas, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankara. Mind, intellect, memory, and ego. Okay, everyone clear? All sorted? Right. Thank you all for a good discussion. I hope you agree that this verse demanded that we look carefully at what it's saying. Because folks, please remember the Bhagavad Gita will just put things in a verse, and unless you give it deep thought, it will go over your head. Right? He very casually said, right? Let me say it again. So beautiful. Bhutanam asmi chetana. Finish. We have discussed this as a group in a satsang for an hour now. 2 Sanskrit word, Bhutanam asmi chetana. So the whole Gita is full of this. You can pause and stop at part of a verse, part of a line, and if you think about it deeply enough, if you do your mananam sincerely enough, you will find that there is a lot to think about there. Agreed, Santa?
Absolutely, yeah, I agree there.
Yeah.
I think we're amazed when you
He
find
just
answers.
casually says, Bhutanam asmi chetana. It is such a deep thing to say. And this warrior prince standing in front of him must have been so smart, because now we are going to start chapter 11. And he says, he calls him lotus-eyed one, Kamala Patraksha. This is Kamala Patraksha. I have understood this Adhyatma. He's being like a good lawyer. He's building up the first 2-3 verses of this chapter 11. And of course, the Jagat Guru knows what is coming, but he builds it up. And then he asks his $1 million question. And he says, I want to see now. You have described in what we learned in chapter 10. You have described it all. I want to see now. But let's see how he builds it up. So if everyone is okay, we can now begin our journey of the next chapter, chapter 10 of this Bhagavad Gita. And as is the norm and the tradition, we will start with the opening invocation of the chapter and the first verse of this chapter.
अथ एकादशोऽध्यायः अर्जुन उवाच मदनुग्रहाय परमम् गुह्यमध्यात्मसंज्ञितम् यत्त्वयोक्तं वचस्तेन मोहोऽयं विगतो मम.
Dinesh, can you kindly read us the translation of this first verse of chapter 11? Yeah, Dinesh, you're there? You need to unmute.
Okay. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Okay. It says, Arjuna said, by that speech of the supreme secret known as Adhyatma, self, which you have spoken out of compassion for me, this delusion of mine is dispelled. It's part of the Viswarupadasana Yoga 11.1.
Yes, Vishvarupa Darshana means the vision of the universal form, the cosmic form, Vishvarupa.
Right.
Dinesh, I think you'll agree, having read this translation so nicely. As usual, the second line is always the one we must pay attention to. He says, which
Yes.
is spoken out of compassion for me. This compassion, yeah, yatva yoktam vachastena, mohoyam vigato mama. This compassion is known as kripa. A teacher imparts this wisdom to his or her student or students simply as an act of grace. They have no compulsion, no need. And Arjun reminds all of us, he says, by that speech, by the speech, he means the first 10 chapters. Well, 9, because he only started speaking in chapter 2. Which you have spoken out of compassion. And then he says, this is what has happened. This delusion of mine is dispelled. This is very profound statement in the very first verse. Can any of us here honestly say to ourselves or to each other or to anybody that my delusion is dispelled? Let's all take a quick survey. Is there anyone here who can say my delusion is dispelled? No, we can't. And yet here is this Partha, this Gudakesha, this warrior. He says, by this that you have taught me, my delusion is dispelled. This is a very bold statement, but it is also a very reassuring statement. Because all of us are what? All of us are who? Chola? We are all?
Mood.
No.
Delusional.
We are.
Arjun.
We are all Arjuns. We are listening to the same teaching. We are blessed that this warrior received on a great battlefield. And he says, my delusion is dispelled. So within that is our benchmark. By this chapter 11 now, are we able to say to ourselves, to each other, and to others, my delusion is dispelled? Can we say this? Anyone? Okay, at least can we say, my delusion is less now?
We are on the path. We are trying.
Yes, absolutely. My delusion is lessened. It's not dispelled, but it's less. I have some understanding now of this essential.
Can I say something?
Yes, please do.
Earlier it was, I don't know that I don't know.
Yeah.
Now I know that I don't know.
Exactly.
That's the progress.
Recognition of our own ignorance of Ajnana, Niyatiji, this is what you are talking, means you are on that path to that word used in this verse, Adhyatma. That self that we all are. We first need to recognize, I was less ignorant, I am now, or I was very ignorant, I am now less ignorant. Thank you, Krishna. That's all. Right, Niyatiji? over, I think, something like 300 verses plus. He's been telling us it's like this. No, not like that. It's like this. Not like that. It's like this. So we have to be able to say, okay, yeah, I am less ignorant. And as Santa said, we're on the way, right? This is what we need to keep in mind, folks. We are on the way. We are on the way. Climbing the mountain together. And because we have each other to hold the hand and pull up, it makes it so much nicer. Sushma ji, Hari Om, nice to see you. Is it true that we have each other? Please unmute.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Can you hear? Can you hear
Yes,
me?
yes, we can.
Yeah. Yes, it's very true what has been discussed. And ignorance is gone. So I said not for now it is that the ignorance between Chaitanya, Chetana, Chitta, all that has gone now.
Excellent. Grace, Sushma ji, of our teachers.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is the grace
Of the teachers.
Lord,
I sat down only for, I think, 3 minutes on this one with Swami Advainanda, just 3-4 days ago.
Madhunugrahaya, no? That is anugraha, no?
Absolutely, Anugraha. This is the grace. Thank you, Sushma ji, for reminding us. Folks, please look again at this verse and this beautiful and important word that Sushma ji has just pointed out to us. Here it is. Madhuna grahaya paramam guhyam adhyatma sanitam. The supreme secret, which is an open secret. Atma Jnana, Atma Bodh is not some secret hidden in some vault. It's right there. It's secret because we have to open our eyes and see it, and then look at it and study it and reflect on it. Right, Sushma ji, agreed? Open secret, not top secret. Right, folks, so that's the start of chapter 11. Now, I have dug out and edited and put together a couple of clips of just a few minutes of the introduction to this chapter from Swami Chinmayananda and one of his senior disciples who is now based in Los Angeles, Swami Ishwarananda, who's a direct disciple of Swami Chinmayananda. So the next thing we are going to do now for the next just few minutes is to first listen to an overview summary of what this chapter is about and then begin with the verses. The first verse we have already seen. As usual, folks, if some of you can just give me a quick confirmation that you can hear this. Thank you.
The two salient words used in the previous chapter is my vibhuti and my yoga. Vibhuti meaning my glory, my manifestation, the one me expressing myself in the many. That was described in the 10th chapter. Where is me present in the various things and beings in the universe? So the teacher went on, more than 35 examples of I am the light in the sun, I am the sparkling in the diamond, I am the beauty in the beautiful, I am the intelligence in the intellect. It goes on and on and on. I am the flavor in the coffee, I am the kick in the whiskey. It went on. To make you understand that he is the heart of everything. When that is over, the student wants to know now, to see the many in the one. And that's called yoga. To see the one in the many is bhakti yoga. To roll up the many and transcend the mind and merge in it and discover his glory is called yoga. Krishna wants Arjuna to experience both spashyame yogamaishwaram. See and recognize both my yoga and my glory. Meaning, it is partial realization. If you merely realize that the world is divine, that I am divine, I am son of God, and you are all children of sin, partial. When you have realized the truth, there is nothing but the truth. Even when I see the names and forms, I see in and through that the play of the one infinite consciousness. That is complete and total realization. The chapter now we are opening up is a chapter where the student, in order as an intellectual, is not satisfied by the analytical process of showing the one in the many. He wants to see it, experience it in the process of synthesis and see the many merging in the one.
So, 11th chapter is a very interesting and most beautiful one, because in no literature in the world we find such a description of God. Nowhere. It's because Krishna had developed a thought process in such a way that Arjun, who was at the battlefield worrying about his immediate predicament, about whether to fight or not to fight, is uplifted to even recognize the universal presence of the Lord. He is not just a creator, he is also the creation. This is the way Vedanta looks at the whole philosophy. The difference between philosophy and religion, as Gurudeva again and again pointed out in many places, is that religion is that which makes you worship God. Whereas philosophy in Hindu scriptures, the philosophy is not alienate yourself from the Lord whom you worship, but discover Him in yourself. And this combination of philosophy and religion put together is Sanatana Dharma. Vedas talk about, in the majority of the portion, about how to worship the powers. But they don't stop there. Towards the end of the same scripture, Vedas, we find Vedanta, which is how to discover that one whom you are worshipping as an external factor, the power, is itself is your own being. And this is the most beautiful combination of philosophy and religion, and that's what we call it as spirituality. And that we find very explicitly present in Bhagavad Gita.
I thought that was rather good. Religion, philosophy. And when they come together in this Bhagavad Gita, that is spirituality. The Gita is studied, as I'm sure all of you know, by people of all traditions, cultures, faiths, religions, as that universal Shastra of living and life, of that universal Shastra of humankind. And so this was the introduction to chapter 11. And the first verse we have already heard. There are a couple of hands up. So Santa, I think your hand is up. Please go ahead.
Absolutely. So, when you hear people say, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual, they don't understand it goes hand in hand. You need one to carry you together to get on that path, because without religion, there's no foundation to correct you how to go.
Exactly. So as Swami Ishwarananda put it so nicely and succinctly, when you combine religion with philosophy in the Bharatiya tradition, that is called Sanatana Dharma. And he specified then that these last portions of the Vedas, the first bits instruct you on worship, hymn, liturgy, and all that. That is 90% or more. Only that last bit is this scriptural spiritual philosophy. That is its full descriptive term. Scriptural spiritual philosophy. Right? Shastra, Adhyatma, Buddhi. Scriptural spiritual philosophy. And he says when that comes in, now it becomes something very spiritual. Religion plus philosophy is spirituality, is the foundation of Sanatana Dharma, the Vedas. And we are studying that very last bit of the Vedas, the creme de la creme, the Upanishads, Veda Anta, Vedanta, the last bit, Veda Anta. And further, we are not even being asked to study the Upanishads. Because the Bhagavad Gita, again, reminder folks, each chapter ends by saying Gita Upanishad. The Gita is an Upanishad. The highest Upanishad because it has taken all of the key wisdom from the Upanishads which come at the end of the Vedas and put it in one place. Krishna is very gracious. Right? I think everyone has to agree with this. Here is this battlefield armies, this fellow saying, I can't do this, moment of doubt. And he imparts these 700 verses, which is the crystallization, the very distillation of those Upanishads, which are the end portions and philosophical bits of the Vedas, of Sanatana Dharma itself. The entirety of the thinking behind Sanatana Dharma is in this Bhagavad Gita. Even Swami Chinmayananda himself told commoners like us, and even his shishyas, the brahmacharis and the sannyasis, it's fine. Study and understand the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutras, the Yoga Sutras. But this one Shastra, this is the foundation. This is the key. This you hold in front and center in front of you because it has all that thinking in one place. So I think we have to agree. We are very fortunate. Isn't it? Priti from Noida. Priti, are we fortunate? You need to unmute. We want to hear your voice.
Yes. Yes, of course, we are immense. Fortunate.
Is it me or is Priti breaking up a little bit?
Yeah, she's breaking. If she can switch over.
Is this better?
That's much better.
Yeah. I feel that with the talk about our past memory and about the expanse of memory, if all of that, if we were to see, then what we would be seeing is the Vishwarupa Darshana, which we would be unable to take. And I think the expanse that the Vishwarupa Darshana is of Maya, the expanse and the extent of Maya.
Exactly. Because remembering, Priti, good point. We'll come to it in some of the early verses of this beautiful chapter. Remembering that Brahman plus Maya, that component of Maya is needed on the supreme absolute reality, is equal to Ishvara. That which is the perceivable creation of the Creator. Brahman plus Maya. Without that Maya, that very power of the absolute truth, There is no Ishvara or creation. But the question that was answered a few months ago when we looked at this short verse from the Vedas themselves, from Rig Veda, is why? And the short, succinct, but even perhaps unsatisfactory answer was Leela. Just a play. And at the end of chapter 10, he says, right, then why are you asking me all this? This is a tiny fraction of my splendor. Why do you want to know this? And then, of course, we start chapter 11, where the fellow asks him, "Well, fine, show me." So keep this idea of Leela in mind. We have come across it a few times. Nasadiya Suktam, it's called, the segment of the Rig Veda, Nasadiya Suktam. That before the beginning, there was no beginning nor anything. It starts on that very deep philosophical note, Nasadiya Suktam. And if you like, we can look at it again from Rig.
If I may say something.
Yes.
At the end of it, it comes down to what is it that we are ultimately acknowledging. So, I mean, for instance, if we use the word beginning, that means we are acknowledging time. And like you were saying, that everything is, I think the word that was mentioned very often at the start was the word scientific. So in this, there are actually, the Vedanta keeps reiterating that there are three truths. And like, we can't tell anybody, for instance, that don't do past life regression, because sometimes somebody says that I need it for closure, and these kind of arguments, or these kind of situations which are very, very circumstantial, but they are also empirical. I mean, that they have data, they are very factual. So the Vedanta Sara, it doesn't talk down to us and say that, look, you're just going to complicate life, so don't get into it. But what it does instead is that it divides the truth into three. One which is apparent, that is all the errors and the mirrors and what we cannot conclude. Then it says there's the empirical truth, that which we are transacting with. But outside of all this is the absolute truth. So now what do you choose? Now what do you acknowledge? Because the more you acknowledge what is happening, that may be very, very tactile, the minute you acknowledge it as the absolute truth, that is the error. Just acknowledge it. Okay, this is transactional, this is empirical, this is transient, but it is not the absolute. And at that point, we are able to step back from everything as a witness. And
exactly.
Even seeing the Vishwarupa Darshana, all he is showing is that this is Maya, this is what you're within.
Yeah. But being the gracious guru that he is, he was asked. So he said, fine, here you are.
Because
what you're referring to, Priti, is this idea that we have discussed previously.
Yeah.
The Vyavaharika aspect, that what you call transactional, and the Paramarthika aspect, the absolute. Okay, folks, I think we've come to the end of today's time. Thank you all, one and all, for attending, for your very interesting and valuable contributions and discussions. Once again, now that everyone is here, my apologies for last Saturday, but I was in a situation where I was not able to excuse myself. And so we will continue with this fascinating chapter 11 as usual next Saturday. And unless there are any questions, comments, thoughts? No? Okay. Ranjita, may I please request you to say our closing? You've been very
Sure.
quiet today. We've not heard from you.
Hariom.
Please close for us. And before you do
Okay.
that, Kritik, may I make a request as I have done before? This point that you made in summary, just at the conclusion now of the three truths that we face, the transactional and the absolute, if you can just summarize that and put it on the group, if you don't mind, because it will help understanding for the participants. It's just that right now we don't have time to go into the details, but if you put it there, then I'm quite certain it will act as a springboard for reflection, but also question. So if you could kindly draft something and put that down, then it'll be very valuable to all of us. Yeah? Thank you. Okay, Ranjita, please close.
Okay. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Thank you so much, Ranjita. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Hari Om.
Ranjita, that last four words are the most important, aren't they? We salute our teachers. That grace that brings them to bring this to us. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We bow and salute them, and we say a great debt of gratitude to them. Thank you all. Hari Om.
Thank you.
Hari
Bye.
Om. Thank you. Hari Om.